Welcome to your Daily Detroit for July 1st, 2020. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. July 1st, man, this year is just blown by. What a great year 2020 is, huh, Jer?
Oh, man, it is the best-looking dumpster fire I have ever seen. All right, let's get started on what to know around town right after this.
Like what you're hearing on Daily Detroit and want to do us a solid? The best way to support this show and ensure we keep it going is by becoming a member on patreon.com/dailydetroit. You can choose the amount you're most comfortable giving, and in response, we'll send you really cool stickers and maybe even some of the new engraved glass tumblers we're ordering because they're perfect for your drink of choice. Because while this show is free and provides you with valuable information about what to know around Metro Detroit, it's not free to make. So go to patreon.com/dailydetroit and thanks. Okay, Jer, another day, another virtual news conference from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. What did she have to say today?
Well, first off, we got to talk coronavirus because that is the statewide story that just keeps on keeping on. Yeah, giving, I guess. There were 373 cases in the last 24 hours and 32 deaths. That's actually slightly up, and it's part of a trend that we're starting to see. We had some downdraft in over the weekend, but you know, this adds the total of nearly 64,000 cases and 6,000 deaths. One thing that's interesting to note, and we're following this last week with Brenna Hauk from Eater Detroit about that Harper's Bar in East Lansing. Well, the cases from that have now shot up to 100 cases. So if you think about that, there are 373 confirmed cases today. You know, there's been a couple hundred over the last few days. A huge section is just coming from this one bar that all these cases were traced. And then there's also a number of cases that have been traced to Fifth Avenue Bar in Royal Oak. So this all shouldn't surprise you that we're now seeing a spike with 20 to 29-year-olds. More and more of the young are getting this disease, and we're not sure yet really what's going to be the outcome of this. One of the concerns the governor has is to get politics out of mask wearing. You're starting to see Republicans nationally wear a mask, including the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. And part of it is that I think there's this growing realization that this thing is spreading, and it's going into lots of areas that thought that they weren't going to get hit by it. And there are a lot of concerns from the state officials around, you know, this could roar back. And in fact, they listed Lansing as a hot spot right now, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I've been seeing like chatter from people who like, you know, say that they complain that masks make them unmasculine somehow, which just absolutely drives me crazy.
One of the things I'd also add on here is that, you know, there's so many knock-on effects to this coronavirus situation. One of them that we've talked about over and over again on the show is the budget. There has been some bipartisan progress on the budget, says the Gov. She did make strong calls, though, for help from the federal government, kind of intimating that it's crucial for Congress on a bipartisan basis to pass something or that we're not going to be able to maintain essential services. You know, these projections are shifting and changing as things are opening.
Meanwhile, more word from Big Gretch on schools reopening.
Yeah, it's called the My Safe Schools Return to School Roadmap. It's a big old 60-plus page document. There is a lot in it, and I'm just going to give you some top lines because, you know, we're just getting a hold of this thing, and I definitely want to have some time to talk to some experts outside of just what the government presents. But on the top line, we're looking at teachers that they would have to wear masks at all times. Students would have to wear masks at all times in common areas, hallways, and on buses. If your kids are in grades 6 through 12, they would have to wear masks at all times. Obviously, there wouldn't be large indoor assemblies and other large gatherings. I mean, you can probably kiss things like, you know, high-intensity gym classes indoors and that kind of stuff goodbye. I mean, any of those things that bring lots of people together indoors. And the plan would be different in different areas of the state depending on how bad the coronavirus situation is. And that's key to note because you have a much different situation in the UP than you do in Metro Detroit that even you have near the Grand Rapids area. So I think this is something that there's, again, uncertainty, but it's good to see some sort of roadmap and planning start to come together as we get closer to the school year. And then one more thing, talking about all this coronavirus stuff, wanted to mention that Dr. Paul Thomas has graciously offered his time to be on the show with us and answer your questions. I already have a couple in the inbox. I know that people have their questions about what to do out there with the virus, what are, the more safe situations, all that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd open up to the wider world. You can send us an email at dailydetroit@gmail.com for those. I plan on recording this for Friday's show, so please get this into me Wednesday or Thursday if you've got questions at dailydetroit@gmail.com. Also, if you want, and this is, I know, a little extra techie, but you can use your voice memo function on your phone, and you could send that via email. I'd love to hear some of your voices. That'd be very cool. And I think it's a great opportunity. If you've got questions, you want to talk to somebody, Dr. Paul Thomas will be on the show on Friday.
And if you use your voice memo function, you might actually be able to hear your own voice right here on Daily Detroit. Staying on the topic of schools, a new study out from the University of Michigan finds that nearly 1/3 of Michigan parents may not send all their kids back to in-person schooling in the fall. Those numbers also change along racial lines. 72% of white families say they plan to send all their kids back to the classrooms this fall. Among Hispanics, 62% of families say they're comfortable sending their kids back to classrooms, while just 55% of African Americans and 46% of Asian families agree.
Also, poorer families in general were more hesitant about sending their kids back to school. It's important to note that districts in lower income areas also may have less money to make improvements to help keep coronavirus at bay. And so far, COVID-19 has hit communities of color much harder. Most respondents also support additional safety measures, including decreasing the number of children on buses, daily temperature screenings for students, alternating between in-person and online classes, regular testing of school staff, and requiring school staff and older children wear masks. And the vast majority of parents believe in-person learning is better than online classes, and I think that's part of what's powering these numbers. The report was published by the Susan B. Meister Child Health Evaluation and Research Center at the University of Michigan and included nearly 1,200 parents of school-age children in Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois.
Well, Jer, as the parent of 2 school-age children, I feel pretty confident in saying that this kind of stuff is exactly what is keeping school administrators extremely busy over the summer, which is trying to figure out how to reopen schools safely and, get kids back in the classrooms this fall. But because the devil's going to be in the details. I mean, you talked about the governor's reopening schools plan at the top of the show. The big question here is the financial implications of all this. How are schools going to afford all the extra cleaning supplies? The sanitizer, the sanitary wipes, the extra staff that they're going to need to clean, the masks. Putting fewer kids on school buses, all those sort of things. That's a challenge for schools in the best of times, and these are certainly not the best of times. I mean, you had Ron French from Bridge Magazine on the show a month or so ago, talking about the potential financial hit that schools are facing for the coming school year. We still don't know the outcome of that. We don't have the certainty around that yet, but it's almost certain that schools are gonna have a major financial crunch if the U.S. Senate doesn't act, on more stimulus aid to states. And I will tell you that, this fall, you're going to hear a loud, deafening, piercing wail coming from every household across Michigan that has school-age children if the next school year starts this fall with online learning, once again, is the name of the game. I mean, including mine, because I think every parent that I've talked to of school-age kids is just, they're over it. Like, they couldn't wait for the school year to end. They did not enjoy it. It was stressful for them. It was stressful for the kids. I mean, this is hugely disruptive for kids. And they need, I've said this before, and it's one of the biggest things I've learned as a parent, that routine is so important for kids. Like, it's incredible how big routine is. They need to be with their friends. They need to learn just kind of the daily rhythms of school life. As much as they complain about it, it's hugely important for them. And I really, worry about the disruption in, educational development for all students, especially, really, but especially for lower income students, kids who don't necessarily have access to the internet, or they don't have parents who, can easily take the time to help them out with their studies and keep them on task and provide structure during the days when, they may have like a couple online Zoom meetings or whatever scheduled throughout the day and then kind of nothing else.
Well, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak about that. But I'd also add on the idea that there is so much economic activity that is, kind of hold up if you've got to always deal with your kid. You've got to deal with your childcare situation. You've got to deal with, if you're working at home, trying to balance that. I know the challenges that our own team has faced dealing with this.
So many parents have said that has just been so stressful to them.
For sure. And if we, and not saying that, what exactly we should do and when we should do it, because I'm not an epidemiologist and I'm not, an expert, but it's one of the things that going down the line, I think we need to, as a business leader, for me, it's about understanding what the situation is out there and then adapting to the reality that's out there. And we're getting into a situation, if we don't get kids back to school, we really need to start adapting to the reality that's out there around work schedules and productivity. And there's some really big fundamental shifts laying underneath all of this, especially if we don't get back to some sort of, semblance of normal. If you've been around Detroit for any length of time, you've probably heard the name Cass on something. Cass Technical High School, Cass Avenue, and much more. Well, former Michigan Governor and U.S. Senator Lewis Cass is one of our more lauded politicians by history. His statue represents us in the U.S. Capitol. There are places all over the state of Michigan named after him. I'm thinking about places like Cass Lake. Now, there's one fewer. Governor Whitmer on Tuesday renamed the Lewis Cass State Office Building in Lansing for former state representatives Melvin Larson, a Republican, and Daisy Elliott, a Democrat. The pair sponsored Michigan's Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act, which was signed into law by Governor William Milliken in 1977. As it turns out, Cass is a controversial figure, but that controversy has been forgotten over time. See, the former governor was not only a slaveholder, but he ran for president on the idea that states should be allowed to be slave states if they want to. Cass was a passionate advocate of slavery, which strikes many people as out of context with today's Michigan and definitely today's Detroit. Michigan had struggled to pass civil rights legislation on the state level in the wake of the federal 1964 Civil Rights Act, but more than a decade later, Michigan finally followed suit. The Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act established the right to be free from discrimination as a civil right and expanded constitutional protections along age, sex, race, and disability lines. This will also be the first time in Michigan history that a state building is named after an African-American woman. That said, that act to this day does not cover the LGBTQ+ community, despite multiple attempts to amend it. That group was left out to ensure passage back in the late 70s. The U.S. Supreme Court recently ruled that employers cannot discriminate against employees based on their sexual orientation. But Michigan does not currently codify protections for gay and transgender people in other aspects of civil life in our civil rights laws.
An effort to use humor in public signs reminding people to maintain social distancing has backfired in Dearborn. There, the Dearborn Downtown Development Authorities have pulled signs that read, "Keep your distance, stay 24 shawarma sandwiches apart." The Freep reports the signs sparked blowback on social media from people who said the signs were insensitive to Arab American residents of Dearborn and showed that the city needed to hire more Arab Americans to avoid falling back on stereotypes and better represent the community. For its part, the DDA said it meant no disrespect from the signs, which were meant to celebrate the city's food and culture. Similar signs reminding people to stay 6 feet apart used Dearborn icons like the width of a Ford F-150 truck or a Model T to make the same point.
Sven, I am not going to tell anyone how they should feel, but I am going to quibble with the math here. These signs, they imply that the shawarma is a 3-inch long sandwich or food item.
Right, if you do the math, right?
Yeah, if you do the math. And I'll tell you, I have never ate one that is less than 6 inches, so I have a mathematical quibble, sir.
It reminds me of like a subway sign here. The subway on Woodward in Ferndale. Years ago, one of the little letters fell off the sign. They have like those transparent letters. And so it said 2-inch subs. It was supposed to say 12-inch subs. It always cracked my wife up.
The nonprofit advocacy organization Friends of the Rouge River says it's won a grant to develop a large rain garden project near its headquarters in downtown Plymouth. The nearly $400,000 grant comes from a program of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy to address stormwater runoff pollution. It will help the Friends of the Rouge develop roughly 31,000 square feet of rain gardens at the Plymouth Arts and Recreation Complex, or Park. What's a rain garden, you ask? Rain gardens use deep-rooted native plants and wildflowers to absorb stormwater and reduce flooding by holding the water and letting it drain slowly through the soil and filtering pollutants. They also serve as habitat for pollinators like bees and butterflies. The rain garden in Plymouth is part of a planned renovation of a parking lot at the Arts Center and will help resolve issues with sedimentation and unstable water flow in Tonquish Creek, a tributary to the Rouge River. The nonprofit says it will take the lead role in maintaining the rain gardens and use them as an educational tool, demonstrating ways residents can help improve water quality and lessen the risk of flooding. Sven, I saw this story and I thought of you immediately.
I'm a huge proponent of using native plants. I've got a lot in my yard, and I constantly am looking to add more because they bring lots of benefits. I think, people, they've fallen out of favor with a lot of gardeners, who prefer more showy flowers, but there are a lot of really beautiful plants that are kind of underappreciated. And it's amazing to plant them in your garden and watch how they just bring butterflies and hummingbirds and all kinds of cool things into your yard, and other birds, really colorful birds that will come and just feast on the seed heads of a coneflower and things like that. It's almost like free, cheap entertainment in your yard. All right, Jer, I heard this one through the grapevine.
It said, "Come see about me."
Jared, usually you are the official punster of Daily Detroit, but I couldn't resist on this one. And with all apologies to our listeners, we did want to let you know that the Motown Museum has announced a reopening date along with a host of new protocols it's putting into place to boost safety for visitors. The small museum, housed in 2 old homes on West Grand Boulevard, will reopen its doors July 15th after 4 months of being shuttered due to COVID-19. The museum will also allow you to take video inside for the first time ever. Motown Museum says it's following CDC recommendations and bringing in extra employees to help carry out the protocols and conduct stepped-up cleaning and sanitization. Guests will be required to wear masks, which, going back to our earlier conversation, have been proven very effective at minimizing the spread of coronavirus and do not confer any political meaning whatsoever in and of themselves. All right, that's enough of my rant. The museum will provide masks for you if you don't have one. Guests are also encouraged to purchase tickets in advance of their visit. Staff will also conduct temperature checks upon arrival and ask visitors to complete a short health screening questionnaire. The other big news here, Jer, is the opening of a new exhibit showcasing the work of the official Motown Records label photographer, Jim Hendon. He's best known for the image on the cover of Marvin Gaye's seminal 1971 album, What's Going On. That should be a good exhibit to catch for sure.
Man, the Motown Museum is like church for me. My mom loved Motown, and it's always a great experience. And I'm glad people will be able to experience it again. All right, that's it for today's show, friends. If you like what you're hearing, tell a friend to give us a listen. Subscribe to us for free wherever you download podcasts, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It is much appreciated. Even, that guy who left us a 3-star. And thanks for listening. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this together.